If I could only think of how to cut you away, I wouldn't be so frightened or scared to be enlightened. It's kind of difficult to keep my mind on a day that I didn't really mind it. It's in my face, I'll find it. The fields of colors bleeding and it's so far from home. The thoughts keep coming forward, I wish I wasn't so bored. Does it really matter if I'm dying alone? I often try to fake it, what's in my face I'll take it. I'm trying not to break it, the timing it was so right. The heaviness is so light, no more or less is coming. The substance stand for something, you keep speaking easy, you really do believe me. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. If I could have the heart to take a knife to my skin, I'd carve your name for comfort, a feeling there of some sort. It's been a small eternity tormenting within, so hard to keep it inside. My mouth waits for the surprise, staring out my window at a bird on the line. I wish I could get cable, I wish that I was able to filter all the brainwaves that will enter my mind. If I didn't have to see it, I just don't think I need it. If I was pierced, I'd bleed it. Faster is the placement to fill your mental basement. Enough room for your demons, the catalyst with semen. I'm sorry if I frighten, but you're someone I confide in. Please tell me where you're going. I hope my fear is showing, 'cause I'll never ever see you again. I'll never ever see you again.
am the devil. I am the Lord Satan from the netherworld, ruler of the damned and eternal king of hell. Even I, the master of deceit, can only stomach so much bullshit from the mainstream media and indie grifters. That's why I tune in to Morning Extra with Uncle Warren, because he eliminates my competition, and also because I know I'm gonna see that motherfucker soon.
Deo, Deo.
Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake it won't go down. Baby's got a booger and a shooter and that shake it won't go down. Corrosion to her thighs, erosion of her pride. Baby's got a shooter, baby's got corrosion now, corrosion now. Baby's got it.
Baby's got it. Good morning, everybody. It is Friday, May 9th. May the 9th be with you. That's the thing. I'll do the Star Wars thing on the 4th, and then I get stuck. Or sometimes I'll just do it beforehand. May the 2nd be with you. May the 3rd be with you. Just for fun. You know, you gotta have free fun sometimes. We we have a show for you today. The Propaganda Watch is huge. It's just, this is John Holmes and the Hedgehog. What's his name? Combined. It's almost as big as the news block. So a lot of propaganda stuff to get to. So let's get to all our pals here checking out what's going on. Hey, Teresa, good morning over there in Rockfin. Good morning to you, my dear. Hope you're doing very well this morning. We got our usual lurkers on Rumble. I'm sure they'll make their presence known when the time is right. We got Chuck's Intergalactic UFO Show Intergalactic Dildo. Is that what you were singing there? Daylight. Everybody chime in. I could tell what the delay is now because I'm getting the Ron Jeremy answers for the Hedgehog. He is. That fucking hairy bastard. Dude, that dude was probably the hairiest guy in porn. I mean, he said, shave? What? You're crazy. Anybody shave it? A dude was like a walking furball. He looked like a mini Bigfoot. Not that I would know anything about porn. That's some dirty stuff for adults, not me. Willie, good morning to you. The fact that Laura Loomer hates Pope Leo the 14th makes him a default good person because Laura Loomer is a smelly dildo. Dildo. And good morning, ladies and chirps. Good morning to you, Willie. Good show last night. You had Snow Himbo on there from talking about Canada, eh? Very good stuff. Bella's here. Hello, Bella. Good. A long time ago in a galaxy far, far away before anyone thought of any of this stupid shit. Exactly. Bella, you hold a special place in my heart because you're a yes super fan. Even though you know John Anderson, I'm very jealous. I wish to know him too, but only in a friendly way. Ed's over there on Facebook holding it down. Good to see you, Ed. And Miguel's here too. The whole Hee Haw gang is starting to show up. Zell, good to see you. I hope you're doing well. Well, Zell. Well, Lippa is what I'll call you today because I hope you're well. I'm not going to call you that. Folks, we got a lot of stuff to get to. You know, we got a new pope. There's new popes. Pope on a rope. Pope and change. What's up, Steve? Good morning. Hope you're doing well. New pope, they announced yesterday, and he's from Chicago. What? Cardinal Robert Prevost, born in Chicago, is the first pope from the United States. He's 69 years old. Nice. Pretty young for a pope. Right? well, I guess they start off in like their 60s and then they get older and die like the last one did. Yes, he's like 69. Nice. Cardinal Robert Prevost. I hope I said his name right. Well, we call him Pope Leo now. We don't have to call him by his real name. A missionary born in Chicago, spent much of his career abroad and leads the Vatican's powerful office of bishops, was elected the first pope from the United States in the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church. May God have mercy on our soul. Yeah, Dalton. That's close enough. We claim it. Don't drop the Pope. Pope on a rope. He took the name Leo XIV. He replaces Pope Francis, who died last month. His first words as the 267th Pope were, "Peace be with you." Personally, if I was going to be the new Pope and I want to just like shock the world, I'd be like, "What up, bitches? P-O-P-E, yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. You heard? What? Yo, Leo in the hizzy." I probably wouldn't do that. I'd probably be shunned, and I'd have to sleep in the Pope Mobile. From St. Peter's Basilica, the new Pope told the gathering throng that he is an Augustinian priest, but a Christian above all. But on the weekends, he likes to experiment a little, as well as a bishop, so we can all walk together. He spoke in Italian after eating an Italian sausage sandwich, delicious. Then switched to Spanish, recalling his many years spent as a missionary, and then Archbishop of Chiclayo, Peru. The Prevost wore the traditional red cape of the papacy, a cape that Francis had eschewed on his election in 2013. He said, "I'm really proud," said Noelle Nice, a childhood friend who, with her 4 siblings, grew up in the same parish as the Prevost, the old St. Mary of the Assumption on Chicago's border with Dalton. She said her phone was blowing up Thursday with calls and texts. You can't really say blowing up with phones these days. Come on. That's a little insensitive. To think about, we knew him when he was a kid, and he said, he's just like one of us before it was so out of reach for anybody. John Donnie, another childhood friend, recalled Prevost as incredibly kind. You could tell at a very young age, this motherfucker's going to be Pope. No, he didn't say that. There was a kindness and a compassion about him that wasn't really typical of most kids, he said. With Robert, it was on display. When he wore the cross on his letterman's jacket instead of a number. It's kind of a telltale sign. Prevost's rise to become an influential figure at the Vatican began in Dalton as the town grew, taking in thousands of people moving from apartments in Chicago to new homes in the south suburb during the post-World War II boom. There's St. Mary's class there. I don't know where is it. He's standing fourth from the left, so I guess this is him right over here. Catholics moving there typically landed at the St. Mary of the Assumption Parish on the far southern edge of Chicago, straddling the line with Dalton. That's where the Prevost family, Louis, an educator, Mildred, and a librarian, and their sons Louis, John, and Robert, were known as dedicated and devout musicians, altar boys, lectors, and volunteers. Sadly, Niece said, St. Mary's closed as the neighborhoods around it changed, and there were fewer Catholics, although my siblings said we should build a shrine now. Maybe the church would be resurrected by the diocese. That would be something. Yeah, I'm pretty sure like anything that's associated with him is probably going to get the white glove treatment now. Robert Francis Bob Prevost. I'm going to call him Pope Bob. I want to call him Pope Bob so bad. This Leo, I don't want that. I want Pope Bob the first. Like his older brothers, was born at Mercy Hospital at 25th Street and Prairie Avenue on the south side. His parents had been living in a 1,200 square foot brick house on East 141st Place in Dalton. They bought it new in 1945, paying a $42 monthly mortgage. Wow, look at that, $42 a month for a mortgage. Remember that? Oh, that's right, none of us do. Even us old fucks don't remember that shit. That's how long ago that was. Slap a couple of zeros on there and you probably get what it is today. Pope Bob. Hell yeah, trend that motherfucker. Pope. Hashtag Pope Bob. His father, Louis, was superintendent of the South Suburban Schools in District 169. Nice. News clippings from 1945 show he served as a Navy lieutenant in the Mediterranean in World War II. He graduated from the old Central YMCA College in 1943 while living in Hyde Park. You know, I heard it's fun to stay at the Central YMCA. The new Pope's mother, Mildred Martinez Prevost, studied library science at DePaul University. Her death notice in 1990 said she and her husband started the St. Mary's Library in the basement of the old school building, and mentions jobs she had in the libraries at Holy Name Cathedral, Von Steuben High School on the north side, and at Mendel from 1969 to 1975. The Sun-Times reported earlier this month that St. Mary's parishioners remember her as the Sweet Millie, one of those ladies who keeps a Catholic parish running. A constant presence at the school. She was in the Altar and Rosary Society at one point, its president. With a memorable voice, she sang in the church's choirs. Like St. Mary's, the Catholic institutions that helped shape the future Pope are long gone, closed over the decades as the Catholic population around where he grew up and elsewhere plummeted. Among those bygone institutions, Mendel College Prep High School, where Prevost and his mother worked, St. Augustine Seminary High School in Michigan, Tolentine College in Olympia Fields, a suburb where he briefly lived, and Mount Carmel Elementary School in Chicago Heights, where his father was principal. This is him meeting Pope John Paul II. And this guy in the background is like, yes, Pope on Pope action. Daddy like, look at my face. Daddy like. An American Pope was considered a long shot. In fact, Cardinal Blaise Kupich, Archbishop of Chicago, said last month that the next Pope would not be from the United States. Oops! Apparently not a fortune teller, this Kupich person. The new Pope was formerly the Prior General or leader of the Order of St. Augustine, formed in the 13th century as a community of mendicant friars dedicated to poverty, service, and evangelization. Mendicant. The order's requirements and ethos are traced to the 5th century St. Augustine of Hippo, not one of the hungry hippos. One of the theological and devotional giants of early Christianity. If I'm making fun of your religion, it's because I am. The order works in about 50 countries, promoting a contemplative spirituality, communal living, and service to others. Don't worry, I was a Southern Baptist for a long time. I know the drill. Kurt Martins, who teaches the Catholic University of America, in Washington, said Prevost's choice of the name of Leo XIV, referencing 13. Is that right? Yeah, 13, and his foundational letter to bishops on social teaching suggests continuity with the Church's direction under Pope Francis. Has he picked up the communications with Palestinians yet? Probably not. That's coming, though. It's going to have to. He's going to have to address it somehow. Martin said references in Leo XIV's speech to embracing the whole world was among more signs that the new Pope will continue to focus on the poor and those on the margins of society. I was hoping he would focus on the rich and say, you know what, not bad people. Having been brought to the Vatican by Francis in 2023 to head the office that vets bishop nominations from around the world, one of the most important jobs in the church, Prevost had entered the conclave with far more prominence than most of the other members of the College of Cardinals who were eligible to vote. Prevost was elected in 2 days after just 4 ballot voting sessions of the eligible members of the College of Cardinals. He kind of did a Dick Cheney. You know how Dick Cheney was looking for a vice presidential candidate to go with George Bush Jr., and then he said, "Fuck it, I'll do it." That's what it sounds like here. Like he was on the thing to choose the Pope, and he said, "You know what? You got a Pope right here. What you gotta look for? What's the matter with you? What are you drinking your own urine again? What's wrong with you?" Pope Francis was also elected in 2 days, though, after 5 voting sessions. Francis's immediate predecessor, Pope Benedict XVI, made it after 4 sessions over 2 days, and John Paul II required 8 ballots over 3 days. I actually remember that. Every day, the black smoke was like, are they going to elect this Pope or what? Cardinals had no contact with the outside world, and their votes will not be revealed. Although one said, I voted for Pope Bob. Shh. I want Pope Bob so goddamn bad. I shouldn't say goddamn about the Pope, but fuck it. All right, so new Pope. You did your job. You got your new Pope. Now what's he going to do? He's going to do the same thing as Francis. I never saw Francis. I haven't seen anybody in the Pope Mobile since John Paul II. And what happened to Benedict? I know we had a spare Pope. Did he die? I can't remember. But I was about to say, you got a Pope right in the house. Why'd you... You're wasting popes. Stop wasting popes. You know how much they cost? So, coming back here to the United States, sort of, U.S. is, of course, fucking with China as much as they can because they know China is owning their shit right now. U.S. House prepares restrictions on partnerships between U.S. and Chinese universities. Here we go. So, separately, appropriation panel here. Let's see. Did I do that? Separately, appropriation panel here's Agriculture Department is developing a federal plan to limit Chinese ownership of U.S. farmland. Okay, that's the subtitle. A Republican bill that could severely restrict partnerships between American and Chinese universities passed in the full House of Representatives with bipartisan support on Wednesday, while policymakers also signaled interest in limits on other possible Chinese threats to U.S. national security. You'd be amazed what's a threat to national security, including movies. That's coming up later. The bill, which would prevent U.S. universities from receiving Department of Homeland Security funding if they have a relationship with certain Chinese universities, including those tied to China's top science institute, Advanced 266 to 153, with only Democrats voting against it. One of the Republican tried to go for 2, but missed it. It would need to pass the full Senate before it can be sent to the U.S. President Donald Trump for signing into law. It's been proven that the Chinese Communist Party does use programs like Confucius Institutes not to build bridges or promote culture, as they may say, but to expand their influence inside the U.S. for malign purposes. Representative August Pfluger, the Texas Republican who is the bill's primary sponsor, said on the floor Wednesday. Why'd they have to say it on the floor? Why don't they just stand up and say, you guys, there's chairs. Why don't you have a seat? Representative Benny Thompson of Mississippi, the senior Democrat on the House Homeland Security Committee, spoke in support of the bill, but also warned of its potential overreach. House Democrats do not want to see legitimate academic activity between the U.S. and China hindered, he said. Pfluger's bill follows numerous congressional efforts to decouple U.S.-China educational cooperation because of national security concerns. In March, Representative John Moulinar, the Michigan Republican who chairs the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party, well, they have a select committee just for the Chinese. Okay. Sent letters to Stanford and 5 other universities seeking information about their policies on Chinese nationals. Already, several U.S. academic research giants, including the University of Michigan and Georgia Tech, have responded to pressure from lawmakers by announcing plans to sever partnerships with Chinese institutions because they're both cucks. Pfluger's bill would blacklist a broad array of Chinese universities from cooperation, including any that participate in China's military-industrial base or provide support to any security, defense, police, or intelligence organization in China. The blacklist would also apply to Chinese universities that purposely undermine the U.S. relationship with Taiwan, as well as to any affiliated with the Chinese Academy of Sciences, the country's top institute for natural sciences. You heard they bought George Jetson's old flying car for the Pope Mobile? Here comes Pope Bob. Sorry. Critics of the bill have raised concern that it would apply to virtually any Chinese university and thus affect U.S.-China partnerships unrelated to national security. Thompson, for example, had joined 160 other Democrats in opposing an earlier version that lacked a waiver process. The revised bill that advanced Wednesday includes a waiver process to let the Homeland Security Secretary exempt U.S. schools that show robust safeguards and enforcement protocols to monitor the relationship with the Chinese institution. The waiver process would apply if the relationship is either found to be in the interest of national security or does not pose a security risk to the U.S. or its allies. Once a waiver is granted, the Homeland Security Secretary would be required to notify Congress and provide a justification. The earlier version of the bill passed the full House in September, but that did not become law before the end of the congressional session in January. Democrats who previously voted against the bill have said that the waiver was crucial to garnering their support this time. Still, not all were satisfied, with Representative Judy Chu, a California Democrat, saying the bill put an unreasonable burden on universities already facing pressure from the Trump administration. Universities are expected to ask for a waiver from the same administration that is continually threatening their federal funding and their tax-exempt status, she said on the House floor. The real goal of the legislation is to completely sever academic relations with institutions in China, she added. Also on Wednesday, U.S. Ag Secretary Brooke Rollins told a House Appropriations Subcommittee that her department was working on a federal plan to limit Chinese ownership of U.S. farmland. But not Bill Gates. He can buy up as much as he wants because, America. The administration, she said, was finishing measures that would be announced in the next couple of weeks to complement restrictions already enacted by numerous states. We are building out the federal solution, Rollins said, adding that it was needed to provide consistency across state lines and to reinforce existing laws. It's a national security issue of the greatest priority. Is it? Is it a great priority? Propaganda priority, maybe. More than 20 states have passed legislation since early 2023 restricting foreign land ownership, often targeting Chinese nationals or companies. Rollins said her department was working with governors in states like South Dakota, Arkansas, and Virginia, where laws have already been passed to block foreign adversaries from buying agricultural land. Supporters argued that the laws are necessary to protect food supply chains and limit foreign access near U.S. military bases. Well, I understand that, but you can't be having Bill Gates buy up all this farmland, too, and say it's not threatening national security. Just saying, it could be domestic threats, too. Opponents of the laws warn that they risk violating constitutional protections and might encourage discrimination. Several of the states are facing legal challenges, of course. A Florida statute that bans many Chinese citizens from buying property near sensitive sites is under federal court review. Plaintiffs argued it violated equal protection and due process rights and is preempted by federal authority over foreign investment. Federal data shows that Chinese entities hold less than 0.03% of all privately owned U.S. farmland. But Rollins said the security implications of specific locations outweighed the numbers. Working with the states, ensuring they're getting what they need to pass the legislation is of key importance, she said. During the hearing, Representative Dan Newhouse, Republican of Washington State, called Chinese farmland acquisitions a really concerning trend that had increased substantially over the past decade. Yet y'all didn't do anything about it back then, did you? Y'all didn't do nothing about it. And personally, I don't think foreign countries should buy up property in the United States. You want to buy a house and maybe a plot of land, that's one thing, but buying up acres of farmland, I don't think one person should own all the farmland anyway, whether it's an outside investor or domestic, because we need food. And we need to make sure that American farmland is protected. But it's not, so fuck it, right? Yeah, Gates wants it all. He sure as fuck does. Yeah, so this story I'm not too concerned about, but it's just, it's very hypocritical if you're going to talk about people buying up swaths of land like that, and not worrying about the end game, whether it's China or whether it's Bill Gates. That's what's disturbing. So Trumpy and his butt buddies over in the UK there, not everybody in the UK. I love all my peeps over there. You know it's the leaders I'm talking about. U.S. strikes first trade agreement with UK in a breakthrough deal. Uh-oh. Look at that. Trump looks like he's taking a dump. And they're all just like, yes. I marvel at your feces, sir. He goes, I once had a good crap. And he's like, wait a second. This crap isn't good enough. He's like, why am I even here? I don't know who those people are. I know who this is, but I don't care about those people. The U.S. has announced a breakthrough deal with the U.K. that would create an aluminium. I would say it like the British say it. I like that because I think that's probably how you should say it. That would create an aluminium and steel trading zone and secure the pharmaceutical supply chain. The deal affirms that reciprocity and fairness is a vital principle of international trade and increases access for U.S. agricultural products. Trump said on Thursday, though he added that the final details were still being written up. And it's always the details still being written up. That's always the juicy part. The final details are being written up, Trump told reporters. In the coming weeks, we'll have it all very conclusive. The deal, the first one struck by the U.S. since Trump imposed his far-reaching tariffs, is also said to strip back paperwork for British companies looking to export to the U.S. The president said that the agreement would lead to more beef and ethanol exports to the U.K., which would also streamline the processing of U.S. goods through customs. The White House said that the deal will bring in $6 billion in external revenue from its 10% tariffs, which will stay in place, but that it will also bring in $5 billion in new export opportunities. The UK agreed to lower its tariffs to 1.8% from 5.1% and provide greater access to U.S. goods. The U.S. already runs a trade surplus with the U.K., making it a bit easier to find common ground as Trump has staked his tariffs on specifically eliminating the annual trade deficits with multiple nations that he says have taken advantage of the U.S. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer joined the president in the announcement over the phone. Starmer said the deal would boost trade and create jobs. Thursday's announced agreement is the first agreement since the Trump administration started a global trade war with universal levies of 10%. I thought for a second this said, since the Trump administration started a global trade war with the universe, which he probably would. The U.S. has also imposed 25% tariffs on cars, steel, and aluminum, 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico, and 145% tariffs on China. U.S. and Chinese officials are due to hold talks in Switzerland on Saturday. Starmer has struck up a warm relationship with Trump since his center-left Labor Party was elected in July. Of course he has. Starmer's government has been seeking to build new trading relationships post-Brexit with the U.S., China, and the EU without moving so far towards one bloc that it angers the others. Oh, the old fence riders. Gotta love them. All you get from fence riding is splinters in your ass. Economist and one chief executive of an FTSE 100 company, the highest capitalized blue-chip companies on the London Stock Exchange, said the immediate economic impact of a tariff deal was likely to be limited, but that trade agreements in general would help long-term growth. The UK struck a free trade agreement with India this week. The US and the UK have been aiming to strike a bilateral trade agreement since the British people voted in 2016 to leave the EU, allowing the country to negotiate independently of the rest of the continent. Then Prime Minister Boris Johnson touted a future deal with the US as an incentive for Brexit. The U.S. ran a $11.9 billion trade surplus in goods with the U.K. last year, according to the Census Bureau. The $68 billion in goods that the U.S. imported from the U.K. accounted for just 2% of all goods imported into the country. You can imagine where the rest of them come from. China. China. The U.S. has been under pressure from investors to strike deals to de-escalate its tariff war after Trump's often chaotic policy-making upended global trade with friends and foes alike, threatening to stoke inflation and start a recession. Top U.S. officials have engaged in a flurry of meetings with trading partners since the president on April 2nd imposed a 10% tariff on most countries, along with higher rates for many trading partners that were then suspended for 90 days. On Wall Street, U.S. markets were responding to the news amid hopes that this could be enough to ward off a recession. As of 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time, I guess yesterday, the S&P was up 0.97%, and on track for an 11th gain in the last 13 days. The Dow Jones Industrial Average was 1.2% higher, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ composite was 1.17% higher than market open. Stocks have been swinging for weeks with hopes that Trump could reach deals with other countries that would lower his tariffs, which many investors believe would cause a recession if left unchecked. Do you think? So what's the end game? That's interesting. What's the end game? What's the end game with all these tariffs, right? Is Trump just trying to make America money? Or is this some sort of power thing? Or is it just stupidity? Is it a combo? What is it? Delicious. Well, so is this, Bella, top 10 foreign owners by acres of U.S. agricultural land? This is 2021. So Canada had the most at 12,845,209 acres. So it's Canada, then the Netherlands, then Italy. Maybe they're tied. UK, then Germany, then Portugal, then France, then Denmark, then Luxembourg, then Ireland. Very good. Thank you, Bella. I didn't know that. That's the other numbers there. The end game is infinite war. Yeah. You're making a Marvel reference. I get that. Yeah, thanks, Bella, for doing the research there. See, we have smart people in our chat. That's what I like. I don't like sitting here and telling you, like, now this is what this means. Now this is what this means. Fuck it, you're smart enough to figure that shit out. Come on. You want to be babysat? You could go to other shows and let them spoon feed you their idea of what, the truth is and stuff like that. I just give you the facts and you take them and run with them. That's the way we like it around here. UK is playing Pinocchio as their nose grows, talking about weapons sent to Israel. Uh-oh. UK accused of lying after thousands of weapons sent to Israel despite the export ban. I remember I was talking about this last year, or maybe it was earlier this year. I can't remember. The UK government has been accused of lying about its arms exports to Israel after a new investigation revealed that thousands of military items, including munitions and armored vehicle parts, were sent to Israel despite an official export ban. The revelations have sparked outrage, which calls for a full inquiry and the possibility of resignations. No jail time, though. The findings come from a detailed analysis of Israeli import data conducted by the Palestine Youth Movement, Progressive International, and Workers for a Free Palestine, which were reported in The Guardian. The research contradicts repeated assurances by Foreign Secretary David Lammy, that UK arms exports to Israel were defensive in nature and did not contribute to the ongoing war in Gaza. Just a few thousand slipped through the cracks. What's up? Good morning, Wesley. Good to see you, brother. In September 2024, the Labor government under Keir Starmer suspended 29 arms export licenses over concerns they could be used in violations of international humanitarian law. However, the suspension left over 200 licenses in place, including a controversial exemption for equipment related to the F-35 fighter jet program, on grounds of national security and obligations to maintaining NATO supply chains. National security. I heard somebody's trying to, it was a Republican who's putting up something to repeal the Patriot Act. I'll believe it when I see it, but again, fuckery is always afoot, so, if it sounds good on paper, then you should probably investigate it further. Despite the stated ban, the new study found that since October 2023, at least 14 separate military shipments were sent from the UK to Israel, 13 by air to Ben Gurion Airport and 1 by sea to Haifa, which alone contained 160,000 military items. Since the September suspension, the UK reportedly exported 8,630 items categorized under bombs, grenades, torpedoes, mines, missiles, and similar munitions of war. Nothing to do with defense. In addition, 4 shipments included 146 items listed under the code for tanks and other armored fighting vehicles. They should have one for tanks, tanks for all the fishes, or tanks, we have no bananas, and their parts, raising further questions about whether the UK is in breach of its own export controls, which it absolutely is. The data also suggests that monthly shipments of aircraft parts from the UK to Israel have remained steady, despite the government's claim that F-35 parts would only be sent to the U.S. manufacturer, Lockheed Martin, and not directly to Israel. Responding to the revelations, former Labor Shadow Chancellor John McDonnell said, "Shh, I'm a Shadow Chancellor. The government has shrouded its arms supplies to Israel in secrecy. They must finally, says the Shadow Chancellor, I think that's right. They must finally come clean in response to this extremely concerning evidence and halt all British arms exports to Israel to ensure no British-made weapons are used in Netanyahu's new and terrifying plans to annex the Gaza Strip and ethnically cleanse the land." Zara Sultana, MP for Coventry South, said, "This explosive report shows the government has been lying to us about the arms it's supplying to Israel while it wages genocide in Gaza. Far from helmets and goggles, the government has been sending thousands of arms and ammunition goods." Yes, helmets and goggles. Explosive helmets and goggles. I said goblets. I should send them goblets, too. A Foreign Office spokesperson defended the government's position, stating, "This government has suspended relevant licenses for the IDF that might be used to commit or facilitate serious violations of international humanitarian law in Gaza. Of the remaining licenses, the vast majority are for civilian purposes or re-export. The only exemption is the F-35 program due to its strategic role in NATO." The government has yet to provide a public breakdown of what the remaining licenses cover, leaving open critical questions about oversight, enforcement, and accountability. A hallmark of 2025 for sure. Campaigners and MPs continue to demand transparency and a complete halt to all military exports to Israel while the genocide in Gaza continues. Oh, hello! We'll continue to send you weapons. Hello! What's up, Global? Hello to you. Hope you're doing well. So Germany, nine. Germany has a new chancellor. He looks wild too. And he's giving Trump some tood. He's giving him some tood, y'all. New German chancellor tells U.S. stay out of Berlin's affairs. Look at him. You will stay out of our affairs? How much will you be in our affairs? 9! 9! All right. German Chancellor Friedrich Merz has told the U.S. government to stay out of his nation's domestic policies. It comes after the Trump administration officials slammed the designation of Germany's second largest party, Alternative for Germany, that's AfD, as an extremist organization. And you're wondering why D instead of G. For those of you, it's Germany is actually called Deutschland. We call it Germany, but they call it Deutschland. Why we call it that, I don't know, because we're assholes. Following the move last week by Berlin's Domestic Intelligence Agency, the BFV, U.S. Vice President J.D. Vance said the German establishment had rebuilt the Berlin Wall. U.S. Secretary of State Aquaman in turn declared that the EU's largest economy has become a tyranny in disguise and called upon the German authorities to change course. Merz, who was elected chancellor only after failing his first confirmation vote in parliament, told the broadcaster ZDF on Tuesday that absurd observations were emanating from Washington regarding the treatment of the right-wing party AfD by German authorities. He looks pretty happy there. The chancellor stressed he would like to encourage the American government to largely stay out of German domestic politics. The 69-year-old politician, noted that he did not interfere in the American election campaign last year, which ended with Trump winning a second term in the White House. He also expressed his belief that U.S. politicians should not support AfD because they can clearly distinguish between extremist parties and parties of the political center. Not our politicians. Merz said he's planning a phone call with Trump with their first face-to-face meeting set for the NATO summit in The Hague on June 24th and 25th. I don't know if Trump and any of his gang want to be near The Hague at all. much less there on purpose. When asked about the possibility of AfD being outlawed in Germany altogether, the chancellor said the German government needed to show restraint on the issue. 10 million AfD voters, you cannot ban them, Merz argued. He said the ruling CDU-CSU alliance should instead focus on addressing the causes, pushing people to vote for the right-wing party. Oh, look at that. What? What is this? The addressing the causes, pushing people to vote. You mean like they don't do with the Democrats here? You know, when they get their ass handed to them by shitty Republicans, and like, what did we do wrong? It's a rhetorical question. They know what they did wrong, and they're not going to correct it. AfD demands tighter immigration and asylum laws and opposes the woke agenda. It achieved its best ever result in February's election, clinching 20.8% of the vote and finishing second after CDU-CSU, which got 28.5%. The party filed a lawsuit on Monday challenging the BFV's decision to classify it an extremist organization. Yeah, well, good luck to that. As, you know, the right wing keeps getting more further to the right as we go. Yeah, what? Am I? No, Bueller? All right. So, yeah, new pope, new German chancellor. Kind of has that, the Vatican has that new pope smell to it. Have you noticed that? If you've been in there recently, you're like, yeah, it smells like a new pope. That's pretty nice. What else we got here? So, U.S. is trying to stay friendly with the Saudis, you know, because money and oil and all that stuff, you know the thing. U.S. delinks Saudi nuclear program from normalization with Israel. Pittsburgh dude, 87, what's up, dude? Good to see you. Mertz wants to give Ukraine Taurus missiles to strike inside Russia. AfD doesn't. Who's the extremist? Hey, that's a good point. So when you hear a lot of these accusations, a lot of it is projection, particularly if it's coming from people in authority. That's mostly where it comes from. Well, yeah, it's the woke, yeah, new pope soap on a rope. The woke they're talking about is the DEI, I think. Not like being like enlightened and awake to the facts of the world being as shitty as it is. It just means DEI. That's basically what it is. So there you are. It's like, I guess I want to keep having money. Yes, oil, money. The U.S. government is no longer demanding that Saudi Arabia normalize ties with Israel as a condition before nuclear cooperation talks can proceed, according to a report by Reuters. Over the past several years, Washington has sought to secure Riyadh's entry into the Abraham Accords by offering a so-called mega deal that includes a comprehensive defense treaty and assistance in developing a civilian nuclear energy program in exchange for the kingdom normalizing ties with Israel. The strategy was nearing completion in 2023, with officials from all sides signaling an imminent normalization deal. However, the Palestinian resistance Operation Al-Aqsa flood and the resulting Israeli genocide of Palestinians halted these plans. Interesting. So they were just getting ready to do that, and then October 7th happened. Saudi Arabia has publicly claimed that it will not establish official ties with Israel without the creation of an independent Palestinian state, which is never going to happen. So they're never going to establish official ties with Israel, it seems like. Based on that sentence alone. The new revelations come a few days before U.S. President Donald Trump begins his first trip to West Asia since returning to power, which will include stops in Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the UAE. No visit to Israel has yet been scheduled. What? Yeah, he's got to get his lips prepared for the ass puckering. Earlier on Thursday, Israel Hayom reported that Trump has lost patience with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and will not wait any longer for Israel before advancing initiatives in West Asia. According to informed sources cited by the Hebrew outlet, Trump wants to make decisions he believes will advance American interests, particularly regarding Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. But he has grown frustrated with Netanyahu delaying making the necessary decisions. Moreover, Trump is reportedly furious after it was revealed that former National Security Advisor Mike Waltz had closely coordinated with Netanyahu regarding U.S. military action in Iran. The president's anger likely explains Israel's exclusion from both the announcement regarding the ceasefire with Yemen and Israel's inclusion in the agreement. The report goes on to say, what? We just did this. Come on. Really? Okay, yeah. So we'll get back to Israel in a moment. So meanwhile, Kashmir violence escalates amid India-Pakistan crossfire. So if it isn't bad enough, you have Ukraine, Russia, you have Israel, Gaza, you have, now you have India and Pakistan mixing it up. And this isn't some new thing. This has been ongoing. Indian and Pakistani soldiers exchanged gunfire overnight in Kashmir, a day after the worst violence between the nuclear-armed rivals in 2 decades. Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif pledged to retaliate after India launched deadly missile attacks on Wednesday morning, with days of repeated gunfire along their border escalating into artillery shelling. "We will avenge each drop of blood of these martyrs," Sharif said in an address to the nation. India said it had destroyed 9 terrorist camps in Pakistan in focused, measured, and non-escalatory strikes, 2 weeks after New Delhi blamed Islamabad for backing an attack on tourists in the Indian-administered side of disputed Kashmir, a charge Pakistan denies. I don't know why Kashmir is disputed. It's probably one of the most underrated Led Zeppelin songs there are. At least 44 deaths have been reported from both sides of the border following Wednesday's violence, including children. Of course, it's always children. Islamabad said 31 civilians were killed by Indian attacks and firing along the border. New Delhi said 13 civilians and a soldier had been killed by Pakistani fire. The largest Indian attack was on an Islamic seminary near the Punjabi city of Bahawalpur, killing 13 people, according to the Pakistan military. Madasar Choudhary described to the AFP news agency how his sister saw 2 children killed in Poonch on the Indian side of the frontier on Wednesday. She saw 2 children running out of her neighbor's house and screamed for them to get back inside, Choudhary said, narrating her account because she was too shocked to speak. But shrapnel got to the children and they eventually died. Muhammad Riaz said he and his family had been made homeless after Indian attacks hit Muzaffarabad, the main city of Pakistan-administered Kashmir. "We have no place to live," he told AFP. "There's no space at our relative's house. We are very upset. We have nowhere to go." On Wednesday night, Pakistan military spokesman Ahmed Sharif Chaudhry reported firing across the line of control, the de facto border in Kashmir, and said the army had been authorized to respond in self-defense at a time, place, and manner of its choosing. That's a little vague. India's army on Thursday morning reported firing small arms and artillery guns in multiple sites overnight, adding that its soldiers had responded proportionately without giving further details. India and Pakistan have fought multiple times since the violent end of British rule in 1947, when colonial officers drew straight-line borders on maps to partition the nation's dividing communities. Muslim-majority Kashmir, claimed by both India and Pakistan, has been a repeated flashpoint. These are some of the brutal pictures from this. It seems like more and more conflicts. And of course, you have the conflicts in Africa, too. You have a civil war there. I think we're in a world war, folks. We may not all be fighting on the same side or fighting against the same people, but this is a world at war right now. We're not going to have any peace until we all stand up and stop this. You know? If we don't stop it, who's going to stop it? Who's going to stop it? You know? The only way you stop it is if you shut down the capitalistic system that funds it. You say, "Oh, what's capitalism got to?" Capitalism has everything to do with this, especially this crony capitalism that's going on, where we allow the stock market, a casino, to rule our lives, and I'm pretty done with that. Meanwhile, Pakistan says India deployed a fleet of Israeli drones as border tensions escalate. Oh, Israel, you always got to have some dirty little mitt in the, don't you? The Pakistani military announced that it has shot down 25 Israeli-made Harap drones launched by India since the start of its offensive against Pakistan 2 days ago. According to the Director General of the Inter-Services Public Relations, Lieutenant General Ahmad Sharif Chaudhry, Israeli-made drones were successfully destroyed in Lahore, Gujranwala, Rawalpindi, Chakwal, Bahawalpur, Mianwal, Karachi, Chor, Mianwal, and Attak. That sounds like Klingon places. The military's media wing reported that the drones were shot down using both electronic countermeasures and conventional weapons. Designed as a loitering munition, Harap drones act as a hybrid between a drone and a missile and are reportedly capable of autonomous reconnaissance, target identification, and lethal strikes, all without prior intelligence input. The Inter-Services Public Relations Directorate described the drone incursions as a desperate and panicked response by India following Pakistani retaliatory operations on May 6th and 7th, which shot down 5 Indian fighter jets and struck several military sites. According to a statement from the Directorate, wreckage of Israeli-made drones is being recovered from various locations within Pakistan. In February last year, Reuters reported that India, Israel's largest defense buyer, had not slowed its purchases of Israeli weapons despite international backlash to Tel Aviv's assault on Gaza. India has imported military hardware worth $2.9 billion from Israel over the last decade, including radars, surveillance, and combat drones and missiles. Pakistan's Defense Minister Khawaja Muhammad Asif told Reuters that Pakistani retaliation against India is increasingly becoming certain now. I will still refrain from saying it is 100%, but the situation has become very difficult. We have to respond, Asif stated. India launched airstrikes on targets in Pakistan and Pakistani-administered Kashmir on May 6th, triggering the worst military confrontation between the two nuclear-armed neighbors in over 2 decades. Yeah, they both have nukes, in case you didn't know that. Indian military officials said the strikes targeted 9 terrorist infrastructure sites in Pakistan, including locations linked to extremist group Jaish-e-Mohammed and Lashkar-e-Taiba. New Delhi claimed the strikes were preemptive, aimed at disrupting further attacks after 26 Hindu tourists were killed in Indian Kashmir last month. Pakistan denied any connection to the April 22nd attack. It said the Indian strikes targeted 6 civilian locations, killing at least 26 people and wounding 46. The cross-border violence continued with intense shelling in Kashmir. Indian police reported 10 civilians killed and 48 injured on their side, while Pakistani officials said 6 people died in the shelling on their territory. The escalation, which India dubbed Operation Sindoor, has sparked fears of a broader conflict. The operation marks the first time India has attacked targets in Pakistan's Punjab province since the 1971 war. That was over 50 years ago, folks. A lot of things happening in the past that are happening again. The individual sold his soul for clicks. Yes, revolution starts with the individual. It does. It absolutely does. We just have to encourage each other to do it and keep encouraging people to do it. So it's no secret that Israel's trying to kill the Palestinian state. Everybody and their mom knows that. So Israel to advance E1 settlement project that would kill the Palestinian state. Israel is poised to move forward with a highly contentious settlement project east of Jerusalem that would effectively divide the occupied West Bank in two, according to Finance Minister Bezalel Smotrich. This is how we effectively kill the Palestinian state, Smotrich, a far-right minister who also oversees settlement activity and civilian affairs in the West Bank and also plays the devil on TV, said during a conference on Tuesday. The project known as the E1 plan, or EI plan, would involve the construction of 3,412 housing units for Israeli settlers on occupied Palestinian land. It aims to connect the settlements of Kfar Adumim and Mali Adumim, with occupied East Jerusalem, cutting off Palestinian communities from one another and significantly disrupting territorial continuity. CBC voter, happy Fish Day to you too, my friend. The plan would isolate East Jerusalem from the West Bank, forcing Palestinians to take lengthy detours to travel between cities and towns while enabling further expansion of Israeli settlements. Although the E1 construction plan dates back to the 1990s, its implementation has repeatedly been delayed due to strong international opposition. Both the U.S. and the European Union have warned successive Israeli governments against advancing the plan, citing its potentially devastating impact on prospects for a two-state solution, which ain't never going to happen. Smotrich said the government will advance the plans in the coming months, though he did not give a specific date. Xavier Abu Aid, a communications advisor with the Palestine Liberation Organization's negotiations department, warned that Smotrich's remarks should not be dismissed as fringe rhetoric. He noted that the minister's stance reflects a broader consensus within Israeli politics. Smotrich is not a marginal voice, Abu Eid told Middle East Eye. When it comes to Palestine, his goal of denying Palestinian freedom aligns with the mainstream among Zionist parties. And when it comes to racism more broadly, his role is essential in keeping Prime Minister Shithead coalition intact. Abu Eid said Smotrich's previous statements aligned with the broader Israeli policies, including those he described as ethnic cleansing and occupation in Gaza, targeting West Bank refugee camps, and moving for annexation in the West Bank. Just a side note, you've been seeing polls where Israelis are against the Gaza war, but they just want the prisoners back because they've been propagandized into thinking this is all about prisoners and not about ethnic cleansing. That's the thing. The people in Israel, when you're born into it, steeped into that propaganda since birth, literally, I mean, you don't want to say, well, they don't understand, so they could be forgiven. Of course not. They can't be forgiven. But they don't understand because their head's too full of the shit that they've been taught since birth. Speaking at a settlement conference organized by the right-wing Makor Rishon newspaper in the Afra settlement, Smotrich reaffirmed his commitment to the project. He said the government had already approved 15,000 settlement units in 2024 and is investing 7 billion shekels, around 1.9 billion American, in new roads across the West Bank to facilitate further settlement growth. In March, Israel's political security cabinet approved a separate road for Palestinians south of the E1 area, linking the northern and southern West Bank. This road is seen as a preparatory step to expand settlement construction in the area. Under the plan, Palestinian traffic would be rerouted away from Route 1, the main highway connecting Jerusalem to Ma'ale Adumim, reserving it primarily for Israeli use. These steps are part of Israeli policy to impose a new irreversible settler reality on the ground, according to Ismail Musalmani, a Palestinian analyst on Israeli affairs. The plan makes the establishment of a viable Palestinian state impossible, Musalmani told Middle East Eye. This is because it will lead to the fragmentation of Palestinian territories into isolated Bantustans and prevent Palestinian sovereignty over external borders or natural resources, he added, referring to the black-only ghettos created by apartheid South Africa. Smotrich claimed that the initiatives would significantly boost the Israeli population in the West Bank. This is how we bring in a million settlers. Ugh. Around 700,000 Israeli settlers live in roughly 300 illegal settlements across the West Bank and East Jerusalem, all of which have been built since Israel captured the territories in the 1967 Middle East War. Under international law, settlement construction in an occupied territory is illegal. What? Breaking the law? We do it all the time here. The minister also vowed that there will be sovereignty during this term, referring to the formal annexation of parts of the West Bank under the current government led by Netanyahu. But while reaffirming his intention to push for annexation, he acknowledged that political recognition alone is insufficient. If Israel approves annexation and is recognized by U.S. President Donald Trump, and then a Democratic president comes along and revokes that recognition, it will be meaningless. Well, you just buy them. Use that. What do you think you have AIPAC for? Just buy them off. Nevertheless, actual sovereignty will be realized on the ground. According to Musalmani, these projects essentially aim to redefine the solution to the conflict as solely security and administration-based, not sovereignty-based. These policies are moving forward and require a unified Palestinian response, serious international pressure, and innovative resistance strategies, he said. That is, if there is genuine will to keep the dream of a Palestinian state alive. Which a two-state solution is not going to happen. I think everybody has come to that. Anybody with a brain in their head has come to that conclusion. I mean, if it wasn't apparent before October 7th, then it's never going to be apparent. But there's not going to be a two-state solution. And if it is, it's going to be in the far future, and it's going to be totally different than what people are trying to make today. Because it's all just talk and rhetoric now. None of these things are going to happen. Just like codifying Roe v. Wade, you know. You have 50 years to do that shit, and you couldn't have done it. Or you didn't do it. You could have, but you didn't do it. Talk. All talk, no action. What is actionable is all the community kitchens in Gaza are shutting down, as dozens of them are closed due to the Israeli blockade. Yeah, they tried in 47, didn't take. Yeah. When you try to crowbar people into a land that's not theirs and piss off the people that do own the land, yeah, you're not going to have a two-state solution. Dozens of community kitchens in Gaza shut down yesterday after running out of supplies due to the total Israeli blockade on the Palestinian territory, which is starving millions of civilians. Amjad al-Shawa, director of the Palestinian NGO network in Gaza, told Reuters that the majority of the 170 community kitchens in Gaza have already shut down, and the few remaining will soon run out of supplies. Just a day earlier, the World Central Kitchen, a U.S.-based charity, announced it was forced to halt operations in Gaza. Everyone in Gaza today is hungry. The world must act now to save the people here, Shawa said. The remaining kitchens will be closing soon. The hunger catastrophe is beyond words. People are losing their lone source of food. Shawa said that people had relied on the community kitchens for 1.5 meals per day, but in recent weeks, it was cut down to one single meal. Palestinians who are able to cook for themselves are forced to use expired and contaminated flour. Babies have been suffering, and some have died of malnutrition since their mothers are struggling to produce breast milk, and Israel is blocking the entry of baby formula. Self-defense, folks. Israel first imposed its total blockade on March 2nd, and the collective punishment of Gaza's civilian population has been strongly backed by the U.S., Representative Randy Fine, a Republican out of Florida, who was recently elected in the House in a special election for Mike Waltz's seat, said in a post on the tweeters that Palestinians in Gaza should starve away. Good old Florida. Reports say Israel is expected to announce a new aid mechanism soon that would involve American private security contractors controlling the aid. A plan the UN and aid groups have said is not sufficient to bring relief to the starving population. Israel is planning to establish the aid hubs in southern Gaza, where under the recently approved plan for the Israeli military to escalate its offensive, Israel plans to concentrate the entire civilian population in Gaza before pressuring them to leave the territory. That means Israel will likely use the aid to lure Palestinians to the south as part of an ethnic cleansing campaign. That's from our buddies over there at antiwar.com and Dave DeCamp. So, it's starvation of children backed by the United States. Nothing to see here, folks. Meanwhile, Jordan profited up to $400,000 per Gaza aid airdrop, according to sources there. Jordanian authorities have profited significantly from overseeing the delivery of international aid into Gaza during Israel's ongoing war on the besieged Palestinian enclave, Middle East Eye has learned. Sources say the Jordan Hashemite Charity Organization, JHCO, an official body overseeing humanitarian aid into Gaza, has coordinated with Israeli authorities to act as the sole conduit for aid passing through Jordan. MEE spoke with sources from international aid organizations and people with direct knowledge of the JHCO's operations, One source said much of the aid attributed to the JHCO, in fact, originates from foreign governments and NGOs, both Jordanian and international, while direct contributions from the Jordanian state are negligible. Jordanian authorities have demanded $2,200 for every aid truck entering Gaza, according to 2 NGO sources and 2 others familiar with the scheme. The fee aid organizations were told by the JHCO is paid directly to the Jordanian armed forces. In addition, Jordan has charged between $200,000 and $400,000 per airdrop over Gaza, the sources said. Around $200,000 were charged for each random drop and $400 for targeted missions, despite each aircraft carrying the equivalent of less than half a truckload of aid. Sources said Jordan has expanded its logistical infrastructure in response to rising revenues from the aid operations. According to MEE sources, the kingdom recently acquired 200 new aid trucks through a foreign grant and is building larger UN-supported storage depots in anticipation of increased deliveries under new international agreements. Middle East Eye asked the Jordanian Foreign Ministry, Armed Forces, and the JHCO for comment, but received no response at the time of publication. Since the outbreak of Israel's war in Gaza, Jordanian leaders have had to navigate growing anti-Israel sentiment at home while maintaining their strategic relationship with the country. Jordan has a large population descended from Palestinian refugees forced to flee historic Palestine after the mass expulsions in 1948, widely known as the Nakba. In the war's early months, mass demonstrations in support of Gaza and Palestinian factions, particularly Hamas, were a regular occurrence across Jordan. Under mounting domestic pressure, the Jordanian military began airdropping aid into Gaza about a month after the war started, and Israel imposed a full siege. Since then, Jordan has carried out around 400 airdrop operations, some in coordination with other countries, according to the military. King Abdullah II himself took part in at least one of the missions, all of which were prearranged with the Israeli military. The airdrops have faced widespread criticism, including from Gaza residents and humanitarian workers. They argue that the airdrops, which have in some cases killed or wounded Palestinians, literally dropping crates on them, are unsafe, inadequate, and unnecessary, particularly when land crossings remain a more viable route for aid delivery. Jordanian officials also claim to have dispatched at least 140 aid convoys by land since the war began, each carrying multiple truckloads of relief. These, too, were subject to Israeli approval and coordination before reaching the besieged enclave. According to Palestinian officials in the Gaza Strip, 500 trucks of supplies were required daily under pre-war conditions, a need that has not been met since Israel's assault began 19 months ago. On October 9th, 2023, 2 days after the Hamas-led assault on Israel, former Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, now wanted by the ICC for alleged war crimes, alleged being in quotes, declared a complete siege on Gaza. Although limited aid and commercial goods trickled in at times, the siege has largely remained intact. On March 2nd, Israel reimposed a total blockade, as you know, in the 2 months since. No aid or goods have entered Gaza, pushing the enclave to what some agencies call catastrophic famine levels. And it's not just food. It's medicine, it's clothes, it's everything that they need is being denied by Israel. But it's all self-defense, folks. Come on. What's wrong with you, you anti-Semitic bastards? Can't you see it's self-defense? You Jew-hating motherfuckers. So, there apparently is some bad blood between Trump and Netanyahu. I wanted to put this under propaganda, but there's already too much stuff there. But this makes sense when it comes to egos, right? So Trump cut off contact with Netanyahu, according to Israeli media. Israel's Minister of Strategic Affairs, Ron Dermer, a close ally of Prime Minister Shithead, reportedly spoke with his usual arrogance to senior Republican officials, detailing what U.S. President Donald Trump must do, according to Yanir Kozin, a diplomatic correspondent for Israeli Army Radio, who cited a senior Israeli official. However, Dermer's approach appears to have backfired. Trump's inner circle reportedly told him that Netanyahu is manipulating the American president, a characterization that did not sit well with Trump. See, this is where the ego comes in. They're playing you. They're playing you. Well, fuck that guy. Fuck that guy. The cited official noted that Trump hates nothing more than appearing to be manipulated. Well, yeah, nobody wants to look like a chump, unless you're a cuck. Anti-semantic. Nice. This perception, according to correspondents' post on Twitter, prompted Trump to cut off contact with Netanyahu, a situation that could potentially shift in the future, but remains in effect for now. And I'll say this right now. All of this is orchestrated shit, right? This is like some wrestling kayfabe script stuff. So you think, oh, well, Trump's finally had enough of Netanyahu. Now we're going to see some real change. You ain't going to see no real change. This is all surface level shit, but you need to hear us. Cozen began his report by questioning the change in the U.S. administration's tone towards Israel in recent days. Israeli political sources told him that Trump's team wants results. One official remarked, if we don't present clear plans and timelines, they move forward. This is evident with Iran, with the Houthis, and it will likely be the case with Gaza as well. The report follows a piece by Israel Hayom, which confirmed a growing rift between Trump and Netanyahu, describing the relationship as strained by mutual disappointment. It's kind of like two people having sex and neither one of them's any good at it, and they're like, at least we did it, right? While Netanyahu is said to be frustrated with Trump, the U.S. president has also reportedly lost patience with the Israeli prime minister. Two senior sources close to Trump stated that the president has decided not to wait for Israel any longer and will move forward with steps in the Middle East without Netanyahu. Previously, Israeli media reported that Netanyahu's visit to Washington received a surprise gut punch when Trump announced that the U.S. and Iran were on the verge of launching talks for a new nuclear agreement without Israel's involvement. Oh, I'm telling you, man, it's like that Bill Belichick interview, and the girlfriend's off camera there, but she's on camera. She's sitting there and she's like, "No, we're not talking about that. That's Israel." And Belichick is America. Yeah. So BB and Trumpy on the outs, but like I said, there's always rhyme and reason to that kind of stuff, and it's usually fuckery for all the rest of us. Yeah, the art of the dump. There you go. So Trump said, you know what? We're spending too much money and planes are falling off ships. We should probably stop fucking with Yemen. So Trump announces halting U.S. airstrikes on Yemen. Trumpy announced Tuesday that Washington will halt its airstrikes on Yemen, claiming that his administration received a promise from Yemeni representatives to stop attacks on vessels in the Red Sea. Trump described the move as good news and a step towards de-escalation in the region. So basically, it's like, okay, you keep fucking up our shit. All right, we're obviously us bombing you is not doing anything. So we're just gonna stop bombing you. You're welcome. And then the Yemeni people are like, what? So speaking during a press conference at the White House alongside Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney, Trump said his administration trusts the Yemeni assurances despite the absence of a formal agreement. The Yemenis don't want to fight, and we'll stop bombing them. We believe their word that they won't target ships anymore, he said. Yeah, well, yeah, and they had stopped when you stopped bombing them. He emphasized that the decision was made in light of what he described as a genuine desire for calm. I read this wrong. I thought this said genuine desire for clam. I'm like, clam. Clam chowder sounds really good. And reiterated that there is no reason to continue the air raids as long as Yemen holds to its commitment to end naval operations. So it's like you just got your ass beat by some guy that has no business beating your ass. You're like, look, I'm going to leave you alone. All right. So you're lucky. I'm not letting you kick my ass anymore. Let's see. Okay. But Israel said, fuck it, we're going to keep bombing you. Trump's remarks came just hours after Israeli warplanes carried out airstrikes on the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, resulting in several casualties and injuries. According to the Jerusalem Post, the Israeli occupation was not informed in advance about the U.S. decision to halt its aggression on Yemen. Al-Mayadeen's correspondent confirmed that Sana'a International Airport was targeted by a series of Israeli airstrikes. Footage shared on social media platforms showed scenes of Israeli airstrikes reportedly targeting Sana'a International Airport. And we'll have more on that in a second. The aggression came shortly after the military issued an evacuation threat for people in the area around the main airport in Yemen's capital, Sana'a, a day after Israel, with U.S. cooperation, bombed the port of Hodeidah after a Yemeni missile landed Sunday near Israel's main Ben Gurion airport. We urge you to immediately evacuate the airport area and warn anyone nearby to do the same and stay away from the area. Failing to evacuate may put you at risk, spokesman Avichai Adrei posted on the tweeters in Arabic, publishing a map of the area surrounding Sana'a International Airport. Shortly after the order of the aggression commenced, targeting the airport and several other areas and infrastructure not included in the warning. There were reports of Israeli attacks targeting a cement factory in Amman governorate. There's also reported an Israeli aggression on the Haziz power station south of Sana'a, station in Bani al-Harith district, and another in Daban, north of the Yemeni capital. So with the bombing of the airport, that means people are stranded on both sides for Yemen, as Yemenis stranded in Amman after Israeli strikes on the airport. Hundreds of Yemeni travelers are trapped abroad or within the war-torn country after Yemenia Airways canceled all flights to the Houthi-controlled Sana'a's airport following Israeli airstrikes that destroyed it. Officials at Yemenia, the country's national carrier, said Wednesday that hundreds of Yemenis are stranded at Queen Aliyah International Airport in Jordan or in Yemen's capital. The company suspended its sole flight from the Houthi-controlled Sana'a to Jordan after Israeli warplanes destroyed the infrastructure of Sana'a Airport on Tuesday, holding its main terminal and the tarmac, including its main terminal and the tarmac. Till now, 3 flights have been canceled, and each one was supposed to carry 150 passengers. An official at the Yemeni office told the New Arab. Footage circulated on social media on Wednesday showed dozens of Yemeni passengers, including some sick in wheelchairs, stranded at Queen Aliyah International Airport in Amman after their flight from the city to Sana'a was canceled. The official noted that the company had hosted at least 100 stranded passengers in a hotel at the airport, and that they're considering ferrying them to the southern port city of Eaton, the base of internationally recognized government, and then busing them to their homes in Houthi-controlled areas. 90% of passengers are patients, followed by traders and students, he added. Posting their images lying on the ground behind their luggage on their social media accounts, stranded Yemenis inside and outside the country have sent appeals to Yemeni authorities for assistance in evacuating them to their destinations. We ask God for a quick relief and his limitless mercy, Abdul Latif Al-Zalieh, a Yemeni YouTuber, said on his Facebook page, lying on his side and resting his head on a black bag on the ground of Amman airport. The Houthis and the Yemeni government have long vied for control over Yemenia Airways and its resources, part of a fierce competition between the two parties over key institutions in the country. Just a reminder that the Houthis and the Yemeni government are two separate entities. In June last year, the Houthis seized 3 Yemenia aircraft at Sana'a Airport that were prepared to transport hundreds of Yemeni pilgrims to Saudi Arabia to pressure the Yemeni government to lift its economic sanctions on banks and areas under their control, to cease moving Yemenia's main headquarters from Sana'a to Aden, and to increase flights from Sana'a Airport to new destinations. Following a UN-brokered deal, the Yemeni government agreed to raise the number of flights from Amman from 1 daily to 3, and also to lift economic sanctions on banks in Houthi-controlled areas. Houthi officials noted on Wednesday that the Israeli airstrikes destroyed 6 planes, including 3 Yemeni aircraft seized during their dispute with the government. Finally, in our news block here, Speaking of airports, Ukrainian drones shut down Moscow airports ahead of Victory Day celebrations. This is from the Libertarian Institute. Kyle Anzalone is the reporter on this. In the 3 days leading up to the 80th anniversary of the Soviet Union's World War II victory over Nazi Germany, Moscow's main airports were shut down by long-range Ukrainian drones. More than 100 flights have been canceled as a number of foreign leaders are expected in Moscow for the celebration. The AP reported that the sustained attacks appeared designed to disrupt preparations for the 80th anniversary celebrations, marking victory over Nazi Germany in World War II, Russia's biggest secular holiday of the year. You're saying there's Nazis in Ukraine who want to disrupt the celebration of their defeat? Yeah. Several foreign leaders, including Chinese President Xi Jinping, Indian President Narendra Modi, and Slovak President Robert Fico, are all planning to attend. Early on Wednesday morning, Moscow Mayor Sergei Sobyanin said Russian air defenses shot down 9 drones headed for the capital, later claiming 15 more were intercepted. Flights were suspended at all 4 of the city's major airports in recent days, while 9 other regional airports in Russia paused operations thanks to attacks along the border with Ukraine. On Saturday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky threatened to attack the Victory Day celebrations, issuing a veiled warning to world leaders who plan to show up. Our position is very simple for all countries traveling to Russia on May 9th. We cannot be held responsible for what happens on the territory of the Russian Federation, he said. They are responsible for your safety. We will not provide any guarantees because we do not know what Russia might do on those dates. The Ukrainian leader added that the Kremlin could even launch a false flag attack using arson, explosions, or other actions, and then blame Kiev. Fico condemned Zelensky's statement as unacceptable. I reject such threats for security reasons. I fully respect that the safety of participants in an internal matter of the Russian Federation. But if Mr. Zelensky believes that his statements will force foreign delegations not to come, then he is deeply mistaken. The Slovak leader continued, it's a great disrespect when someone says to a country that made the greatest contribution to the victory over fascism and suffered the absolute greatest sacrifices we can imagine. Well, celebrate. We might drop a drone or something like that on you. For me, these are unacceptable things. The Kremlin says it's planning to implement a 3-day ceasefire beginning on Victory Day, which was yesterday, in the war against Ukraine. Kiev has rejected the proposal, however, and Russian officials said their forces would respond to Ukrainian attacks. So yeah, Nazis threatening a World War II celebration. Well, you never see that. So that's the news, if you're into that kind of shit. Now we get into the meat and taters. We are number 1 in fighting the war on Toothgay. Was it the defeating the cavity creeps? Is that what it is, Bella? Or is it Yuck Mouth? Hey, I always get those two confused. Yuck Mouth and the Cavity Creeps, which would have been an awesome 60s band. You know, live at the Civic Center, Yuck Mouth and the Cavity Creeps with special guest Crocus. Hydrosonic missiles. That's right. They all have mothers, unless they were made in the lab. Some of those Nazis could be. So we travel around the world trying to find propaganda and all things related to propaganda. Well, we find ourselves in Mali, where the military government, surprise, surprise, has suspended political parties' activities. Who would have thought that would ever happen in the world in 2025? What?
The sharing of biased and
False news has become all too common on social media.
More alarming, some media outlets publish things they think are true without checking facts first.
Unfortunately, some members of the media use their platforms to push their own personal bias and agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
So yeah, Mali's military government suspends political parties' activities. Dun, dun, dun. Mali, get your adverbs here. Mali's military government has suspended the activities of political parties until further notice, days after a rare pro-democracy rally. The decree signed on Wednesday by the transitional president, General Assimi Goïta, cited reasons for public order and covered all associations of a political character, according to state media. What do they call it? for reasons for public order, which is the same thing as invoking national security. What's up, Yipper? Good morning to you. It was issued a week after authorities announced the repeal of a new law governing the operation of political parties, a decision interpreted by legal experts as a step towards their dissolution. In response, a coalition of dozens of parties formed to demand the effective end of the political military transition no later than December 31st, as well as a return to constitutional order. On Saturday, the new coalition mobilized several hundred people to protest in the capital of Bamako against the military government's move. Another protest had been expected later this week. Sheikh Umar Doumbia, one of the leaders of the weekend demonstration, said he was not surprised by the decree. I expected this because this is their way of preventing us from carrying out our activities, but we will continue to defend democracy in Mali. He told the AP news agency, "We are people committed to democracy." Goita seized power after coups in 2020 and 2021. Last week, a national political conference said he should be installed as president for a renewable 5-year term. In 2024, the authorities had already suspended the activities of political parties for 3 months. So if you want some... I talked about like they should ban political parties here in the United States, but it should be a conscientious effort by the people, not a military decision, as is the case in Mali. So solidarity to Mali. Meanwhile, the court orders Trump the administration to transfer Rumeysa or Ozturk to Vermont. So she's currently down in Louisiana right now, or at least she was. On Wednesday, a federal appeals court that ruled the Trump administration must transfer Tufts University doctoral student Rumeysa Ozturk from Louisiana to Immigration and Customs Enforcement custody in Vermont. Last month, U.S. District Judge William Sessions III ordered Trump to transfer Ozturk to Vermont, but the administration appealed the ruling. The judicial panel of the U.S. Second Circuit Court of Appeals has now granted that order. The District of Vermont is likely the proper venue to adjudicate Ozturk's habeas petition because at the time she filed, she was physically in Vermont, wrote the panel in its ruling. The panel says she will have to be moved by May 14th. Rumeysa has suffered 6 weeks in crowded confinement without adequate access to medical care and in conditions that doctors say risk exacerbating her asthma attacks, to say the least. Her detention over an op-ed she co-authored in her student newspaper is as cruel as it is unconstitutional, said ACLU of Massachusetts legal director Jesse Rossman in a statement. Today, we moved one step closer to returning Rumeysa to her community and studies in Massachusetts. Ozturk was kidnapped off the streets of Somerville, Massachusetts by 6 plainclothes officers on March 25th and sent to Louisiana to face deportation. The Washington Post reported that the State Department found no evidence to justify her arrest, but proceeded with it anyway because fuck it, we're assholes. Invoking an Immigration and Nationality Act authority that doesn't require a rationale and explanation and evidence. Rationale, explanation, evidence? What's that stuff? You're smoking that shit again. Ozturk was targeted for co-writing an op-ed in Tufts student paper that called on the school to acknowledge the genocide in Gaza and cut its ties with Israel. The Trump administration has claimed that Ozturk engaged in activities in support of Hamas, but has offered no evidence to back this up. Ozturk said she is one of 24 people in a cell meant for 14. She has suffered multiple asthma attacks since being detained and is not allowed access to the medication she needs. Welcome to Louisiana. When they do the inmate count, we are threatened to not leave our beds or we will lose privileges, which means that we are often stuck waiting in our beds for hours, she said in a statement. At mealtimes, there is so much anxiety because there is no schedule when it comes. They threaten to close the door if we don't leave the room in time, meaning we won't get a meal. Last month, Massachusetts Senator Edward Markey and Massachusetts Representatives Jim McGovern and Ayanna Presley visited Ozturk at the detention facility and published a New York Times op-ed detailing what they saw. We could fundraise off of this, Ed. That's what Ayana said. What we found was not just a young woman locked up without charge, but also a democracy being put to the test. Ms. Ozturk is a graduate student, a writer, and a community member who is in the United States legally on a student visa, which was revoked without apparent cause, wrote the lawmakers. She was walking to an iftar dinner when federal agents, some of them masked, surrounded her, detained her, refused to explain why, and then forcibly removed her to an undisclosed location. It took her family roughly 24 hours to even find out where she was being held. The Ozturk ruling is not the only legal setback that the Trump administration has encountered in recent days. On Wednesday, District Court Judge Michael Farbiarz ordered the Trump administration to detail its legal arguments for deporting Mahmoud Khalil, the former Columbia University student and Palestine activist who was detained in March and also being held in Louisiana. And for those who don't know, why are they being held in Louisiana? Because there's Trump-friendly judges in Louisiana. That's why they're in Louisiana. Additionally, U.S. Judge Patricia Tolliver-Giles has ruled that Georgetown University scholar Badar Khan Suri will be returned to Virginia from the Texas Detention Center, where he is currently being held. In March, Khan Suri was arrested outside his Virginia home by masked federal agents. Why are they masked? Why are they wearing masks? You ever wonder about that? DHS has claimed he was spreading Hamas propaganda and promoting anti-Semitism on social media, but offered no evidence. That usually seems to be the thing. They're doing blah, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah, blah, but no evidence. Khan Suri's attorney said that ICE has transferred him across 5 different facilities across 3 states since he was detained and has kept his legal team in the dark about his whereabouts. Like Khalil and Ozturk, he is currently challenging the constitutionality of his arrest and detention in court. In this important ruling, the court has rightfully rejected the Trump administration's efforts to spirit Dr. Khan Suri away from Virginia to manufacture jurisdiction in whatever court it pleases, said Center for Constitutional Rights attorney Asta Sharma Polkarel in a statement. We will now continue fighting for Dr. Khan Suri's freedom, his freedom to be with his family in Virginia, to continue his studies and work at Georgetown, and to stand in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. Speaking of released students, it's a released Palestinian student, Mohsen Madawi, to meet with Vermont governor and lawmakers. A Palestinian student arrested during an interview about finalizing his U.S. citizenship is helping to launch an initiative to help other immigrants facing deportation in Vermont on Thursday, a week after a federal judge freed him from custody. Mohsen Madawi, who led protests against Israel's war on Gaza at Columbia University, spent 16 days in a state prison before a judge ordered him released on April 30th. The Trump administration has said Madawi should be deported because his activism threatens its foreign policy goals. You're fucking with our shit. But the judge ruled that he has raised a substantial claim that the government arrested him to stifle speech, with which it disagrees. Yes, ding, ding, ding, winner, winner, winner, chicken dinner. Immigration authorities have detained college students from around the country since the first days of the Trump administration. Many of them participated in campus protests over Israel's war on the Gaza Strip, which has killed more than 52,000 Palestinians. Madawi was among the first to win his freedom after challenging his arrest. Justice is inevitable. We will not fear anyone because our fight is a fight for love, a fight for democracy, a fight for humanity, Madawi told supporters outside the courthouse last week. He will join Vermont State Treasurer Mike Pisiak, Senate Majority Leader Kesha Ram Hinsdale, and community advocates at the State House to announce the Vermont Immigration Legal Defense Fund. The group, including lawyers and philanthropists, say the goal is to improve access to legal advice for immigrants and build long-term infrastructure within the justice system as it pertains to immigration law. Vermont's congressional delegation members have spoken up on Madawi's behalf, as have state politicians. Vermont's House and Senate passed resolutions condemning the circumstances of his detention and advocating for his release and due process rights. Republican Governor Phil Scott has said there is no justification for how Madawi was arrested at an immigration office in Colchester. Law enforcement officers in this country should not operate in the shadows or hide behind masks, the governor said the next day. The power of the executive branch of the federal government is immense, but it is not infinite, and it is not absolute. Madawi, a legal permanent resident, was born in a refugee camp in the occupied West Bank and moved to the United States in 2014. At Columbia, he organized campus protests and co-founded the Palestinian Student Union with Mahmoud Khalil, another Palestinian permanent resident that we were just telling you about. His release, which the government is challenging, allows him to travel outside his home state of Vermont and attend his graduation from Columbia in New York later this month. It seems like there seems to be some good news on that front. The Confederacy lives on in Louisiana. Anonymous! You're lurking. Ooh, feels so naughty. It's okay. We don't kink shame here. You do you, boo. Even if that means doing you. But meanwhile, people are still pissed off about the jailing this mayor in Istanbul, not Constantinople. Tens of thousands take part in Istanbul rally for jailed mayor. So this has been ongoing, but I think this is the biggest rally they've had. Tens of thousands of people took part in a rally Wednesday in Istanbul, not Constantinople, to support the city's jailed mayor, Ekrem İmamoğlu, who has become the figurehead of an opposition campaign against the government. The demonstration was one of the biggest in recent weeks and came as the opposition Republican People's Party, CHP, sought to relaunch its effort for İmamoğlu, who was detained in March. Our struggle is the struggle for democracy, for freedom, CHP leader Özgür Özel told the rally. Oh, yeah, that's OZ squared. I remember him, OZ squared. İmamoğlu, who was detained on March 19th on corruption charges, which he strongly denies, is seen as the biggest rival to longtime leader President Erdogan. The arrest could stop İmamoğlu taking part in presidential elections scheduled for 2028. In the days after his arrest, tens of thousands of people took part in nearly daily protests, but numbers had dwindled in recent weeks. The latest protest was held outside Istanbul University that had stripped İmamoğlu of his degree the day before his arrest. We have come here today to take back his diploma, OZ Square told the crowd. He said that a petition demanding the release of İmamoğlu and for immediate elections had secured 14.8 million signatures nationwide. Wow. Yeah. So that's some wild shit over there in Turkey, right? So basically they stripped him of his degree, and you can't run for president if you don't have a degree in Turkey. You kink shame. Teresa, you're terrible. That's why you're all alone over there on Rockfin, because you kink shame. That's your punishment. You have to sit in the Rockfin corner. It's okay. We still love you. If that's not bad enough, so Turkey's doubling down as they block İmamoğlu's Twitter account over there. Yeah, this is him right there. Oh, look at the heart shape. That's so nice. I don't know who that is. Turkey blocked the Twitter account of jailed Istanbul mayor and opposition leader Ekrem İmamoğlu yesterday. Turkish authorities said that a post shared by İmamoğlu last month may constitute a criminal offense, citing public incitement to commit a crime under the penal code. Giggity! Based on this accusation, a court issued an order to restrict access to his account. Since İmamoğlu's arrest in March, the government has blocked hundreds of social media accounts belonging to journalists and news organizations. Rights groups have condemned the move, labeling it as an attempt to suppress free speech. It's not an attempt. It's a straight-on act. They did it. On Thursday, authorities argued that İmamoğlu was not personally operating his account while in custody and that continued activity on the platform could pose a threat to public order. Citing these concerns, prosecutors requested a precautionary access block on his account to remain in effect until the end of his detention. The Istanbul 8th Criminal Judgeship of Peace approved the request, noting that it was technically not possible to block only the specific content deemed problematic without restricting access to the entire account, said a statement from the Turkish Presidency Center for Combating Disinformation. Ooh. You know, when you have a center for combating disinformation, chances are you got a bunch of fucking liars running that joint anyway. That's how it is. That's straight up projection right there. In March, the Turkish government canceled Imamoglu's university diploma, effectively barring him from running in the presidential elections, then raided his home and arrested him on charges of corruption. So, in the April 24th post that led to the account ban, Imamoglu announced he had filed criminal complaints against the officials who detained him on what he described as false charges. I asked this handful of opportunists who have brought complete misery upon our nation, he wrote, how do you justify to the esteemed Turkish judiciary the fabrication of false witnesses and testimonies, creating informants and slanderers, arresting innocents or threatening them with arrest by saying you'll never get out of prison? He also called on his supporters to file similar criminal complaints against the public officials responsible for orchestrating his arrest. Imamoglu has become a symbol of opposition resistance. His arrest sparked nationwide protests and an economic boycott targeting companies perceived to support Erdogan's administration. Imamoglu had been using his Twitter account from prison through his lawyers to share his views, criticize the government, and issue calls for demonstrations and economic boycotts. A member of the secularist Republican People's Party, Imamoglu was reelected as mayor last year with over 54% of the vote, the highest level of support for any party in Istanbul since the 1980s. Although the Istanbul prosecutor alleges that Imamoglu led a criminal network involved in extortion and embezzlement of public funds, no formal indictment has yet been filed. Media leaks purporting to show evidence of corruption have failed to convince international observers. That is a common theme with all this fuckery. Oh, they did this, they did this, they did this. Oh, where's the proof? Me not know. The decision to block Imamoglu's account triggered a wave of online activism. Many users, including opposition leaders, changed their profile pictures to Imamoglu's and pledged to repost his messages on their own timelines. Twitter owner Elon Musk, who has described himself as a free speech absolutist, faced criticism for complying with the Turkish court order despite its political implications. Gonenk Gürkaynak, a lawyer representing Twitter in Turkey, said on Thursday that he had been authorized by the company to file an objection to the court's decision, which he submitted earlier that day. So Imamoglu, this guy says, me like Imamoglu, me make heart shape. So now you may have the possibility of a internal civil war in Turkey. This is people saying that World War III is going to happen. It's already happening. It's just happening in little pockets here and there. Eventually it's going to come to a full boil. And, and then once, it's not like, what is it? Red Dawn, where Russians and Chinese and Cubans are going to parachute in the United States and we got to head to the mountains and fend them off. It's not going to be like that. It's happening right now. We are the frogs in the boiling pot. And some of us are noticing that the water's been boiling for a while. We mentioned Columbia University, that hotbed of activity. Well, guess what? There's more. At least 2 injured in Columbia University protests. NYPD takes dozens into custody. Or as they like to say, it's Friday. New York City police officers took dozens of pro-Palestinian demonstrators into custody at Columbia University's Butler Library on Wednesday evening. NYPD officers were seen removing about 76 protesters from the library in handcuffs, placing them in a van and taking them away. It's unclear how many are facing charges. Aquaman posted on social media overnight saying his office will be reviewing the visa status of any trespassers and vandals. Of course, he likes to, hey, I get to deport somebody again. Columbia officials said 2 public safety officers were injured in an encounter with demonstrators. It's unknown at this time if there were any other injuries. Earlier today, a group of protesters occupied one of the main reading rooms in Butler Library, refusing to leave, and another group breached the front door, causing substantial chaos at the library. All of this as the bulk of our students are working hard to prepare for exams, acting Columbia University President Claire Shipman said in a video message Wednesday night. These actions not only represented a violation of university policies, but they also posed a serious risk to our students and campus safety. We had no choice but to ask for the assistance of the NYPD, and I'm grateful for their help and professionalism as well as that of our public safety team. Let me be clear, what happened today, what I witnessed, was utterly unacceptable, she continued. And then a magic string of pearls appeared around her neck, and she clutched them. In a statement, New York City Mayor Eric Adams also said the NYPD was asked by Columbia to remove trespassers. You're the one who brought up two people getting it on while not knowing what the fuck they're doing. I don't know what that means. Oh yeah. The two people don't. People don't know. They don't know how to fuck very well. They're in the bed together. They're like, we tried. New York governor and current Halloween mask Kathy Hochul said in a post on social media that she'd been briefed on the situation and is grateful to public safety officials for keeping students safe. Everyone has the right to peacefully protest, but violence, vandalism, or destruction of property are completely unacceptable. Unless you have somebody in the mix stirring the shit, which is totally what's up. According to Columbia's website, university IDs will be required to access buildings at the Morningside campus on Thursday. Guests of students and non-faculty staff will not be granted access, and same-day alumni access is also suspended. Oh, good old Columbia University. That college life, of censorship. The start of the incident was captured on video, which shows protesters storming the library. This is CBS News, by the way, which shows protesters entering the library Wednesday afternoon, occupying one of the building's rooms and vandalizing property. We saw that they were preparing for something that came from different sides of campus, so it looked like they had definitely planned it before and orchestrated it before, student Franziska Sittig said. A university spokesperson said the school's public safety team quickly responded. According to the university, protesters were asked to show their IDs and disperse. The university said protesters' identification will be recorded. You're going to be on double secret probation. By early evening, however, no protesters had chosen to identify themselves and leave. The university said the protesters were told failure to comply may result in arrests. The school said, though, other people who were in the library but not involved in the protest were allowed to leave. A short time later, first responders were seen taking someone out of the library on a stretcher, and a fire alarm was heard going off in the building. As a standoff ensued inside, a large crowd of protesters gathered outside the library, apparently trying to push their way into the building. The university's acting president said 2 Columbia public safety officers were injured during a crowd surge when individuals attempted to force their way into the buildings and into room 301. They were injured? How were they injured? Did they get hangnails or something? Demonstrations also grew at the outskirts of campus, where protesters clashed with a growing police presence, pushing barricades and shutting down the block. A student group posted a message from who it called student actionists inside the library, reading in part, "Public safety officers have choked and beaten us, but we have not wavered. We refuse to show our IDs under militarized arrest. We refuse to go down quietly." Around 7 p.m., 3 hours after the occupation began, Shipman released a statement saying the university had requested the Popo's help. Due to the number of individuals participating in the disruption inside and outside the building, a large group of people attempting to force their way into Butler Library, creating a safety hazard, and what we believe to be the significant presence of individuals not affiliated with the university, Columbia has taken the necessary step of requesting the presence of NYPD to assist in securing the building and the safety of our community, she wrote in part. She added, "Requesting the presence of the NYPD is not the outcome we wanted, but my Zionist leaders told me I had to do it. But it was absolutely necessary to secure the safety of our community." While the NYPD was seen removing dozens of people, it wasn't immediately clear how many of them had been formally arrested or were facing charges. Very small minority of students has once again managed to disrupt the entire campus, Siddig said. And that's what you want. You want them to disrupt shit. You don't want a fucking approved parade that says you're protesting. You're not protesting. It's a fucking parade if they allow you to do it. The whole point of civil disobedience is civilly disobeying. That's disobedience, disobey. That's what that means. I mean, you guys know that, but I mean, people who are new to the show may not know that. So, meanwhile, Meta wants a piece of the action when it comes to censorship, as Meta restricts access to India's top Muslim news page on Instagram. Dun dun dun. I'm gonna make this bigger. There we go. Meta has banned a prominent Muslim news page on Instagram in India at the government's request, the account's founder said Wednesday, denouncing the moves that censorship as hostilities escalate between India and Pakistan. Instagram users in India trying to access posts from the handle @Muslim, a page with 6.7 million followers, were met with a message stating, "Account not available in India. This is because we complied with a legal request to restrict this content." There was no immediate reaction from the Indian government on the ban, which comes after access was blocked to the social media accounts of Pakistani actors and cricketers. That's those people who play cricket, not people who, tell bad jokes. I received hundreds of messages, emails, and comments from our followers in India that they cannot access our account, Amir Al-Khattabi, the news account's founder and editor-in-chief, said in a statement. Meta has blocked the @Muslim account by illegal request of the Indian government. This is censorship. Meta declined to comment. Surprise, surprise. A spokesman for the tech giant directed AFP, the author of this article, to a company webpage outlining its policy for restricting content when governments believe material on its platforms goes against local law. The development, first reported by the U.S. tech journalist Taylor Lorenz's outlet User magazine, comes in the wake of the worst violence between nuclear-armed India and Pakistan in 2 decades. As we told you, both countries have exchanged heavy artillery fire along their contested frontier after New Delhi launched deadly missile strikes on its arch-rival. The @Muslim account is among the most followed Muslim news sources on Instagram. Khattatbe apologized to followers in India, adding, "When platforms and countries try to silence media, it tells us that we are doing our job in holding those in power accountable." Yeah, if you weren't making a difference, they wouldn't really care. That's why this show's still on, because the government doesn't care. "We will continue to document the truth and stand out firmly for justice," he added, while calling on Meta to reinstate the account in India. India has also banned more than a dozen Pakistani YouTube channels for allegedly spreading provocative content, including Pakistani news outlets. In recent days, access to the Instagram account of Pakistan's former Prime Minister and cricket captain Imran Khan has also been blocked in India. Pakistani Bollywood movie regulars Fawad Khan. You said, why didn't you say Khan for the other one? Because I forgot. And Atif Aslam were also off limits in India, as well as a wide range of cricketers, including star batters Babar Azam and Mohammad Rizwan, and retired players Shahid Afridi and Wasim Akram. Rising hostilities between the South Asian neighbors has also unleashed an avalanche of online misinformation with social media users circulating everything from deepfake videos to outdated images from unrelated conflicts, falsely linking them to the Indian strikes. On Wednesday, President Trump called for India and Pakistan to immediately halt their fighting and offered to help end the violence. He said, "Listen, I know this great shawarma place we can go to. We can sell it, have some nice shawarma." Hey, Vera, what's going on? You're not way late. You may be a dollar short, but you're not way late. Oh wait, that's a day late. Never mind. Yeah. So, it's bad enough that we have the world war going on. It's the censorship that makes us believe we're not in a world war. That's why you have assholes like me telling you that we are. I think we got 2 more. I believe so. 3 more. Yeah. Okay. So, here's the no shit Sherlock news of the day regarding Israel and the hostages. From my buddies at antiwar.com, Israeli military lists returning hostages as least important goal for Gaza. Like I told you before, a lot of the Israelis who want an end to the war just want the hostages back. They don't give a shit about Palestinians being tortured or kids getting shot in the head. They don't give a shit about that. They just want the hostages back. And now they're basically saying, your hostages, maybe if we get to it. The Israeli military has listed the return of the remaining Israeli captives in Gaza as its least important goal in its plans for an escalated assault on the Strip. That's Haaretz reported on Wednesday. According to the report, retrieving the hostages was placed last in a list of 6 objectives. Those goals include defeating Hamas, number 1. Number 2, operational control over the territory. Number 3, demilitarizing the territory. Number 4, striking Hamas government targets. 5, concentrating and moving the population. Basically the genocide. And 6, returning the captives. News of the Israeli military's goals comes after Fuckhead admitted that retrieving the hostages was not his priority, something that's been clear for a long time but hasn't been explicitly stated by the Israeli leader until last week. You know, this is when Bush gave up on Osama bin Laden. He's like, They made him the devil. They made him the whole centerpiece around 9/11. They were like, if we don't get him, that's fine. Well, it tells you it's just all a charade. Retrieving the hostages was not his priority, something that's been clear for a long time, but hasn't been explicitly stated by the Israeli leader until last week. So everybody knew that he didn't give a fuck about the hostages, but now he's actually saying it. The Israeli military finalized plans for the expanded offensive dubbed Gideon's Chariot on Tuesday and Wednesday after the government approved the escalation. The purpose of the expanded assault is to achieve the full Israeli military occupation of Gaza and concentrate the entire civilian population into a tiny area of southern Gaza with the goal of forcing them to leave to achieve ethnic cleansing. The inclusion of concentrating and moving the population as the 5th goal in the Israeli military's list makes clear that ethnic cleansing is being prioritized over the hostages. Well, it seems like everything is being prioritized over the hostages, which makes you think this has nothing to do with the hostages. The Gazan citizens will be concentrated in the south, Israeli Finance Minister the Devil Smotrich said on Tuesday. They will be totally despairing, understanding that there is no hope and nothing to look for in Gaza, and will be looking for relocation to begin a new life in other places. So yeah, just basically just telling you what you already knew, but now they're at least admitting hostages, if we get to it. So Trump has ordered 100% tariff on foreign films to revive dying Hollywood. And this in and of itself is propaganda, because Hollywood is dying under its own sword. Lack of quality direction, lack of quality writing, scripts, that sort of thing. AI is just going to take it over anyway. Look at this. Look at these 2 meatbags. Yo, Trumpy. Yeah, yo, Trumpy. I'm not Clubber Lang, but I love to go to clubs. And I knew Jessica Lang, so maybe I could be in your next movie. That was a stretch, sorry. Trumpy announced Sunday a sweeping 100% tariff on foreign-made movies, claiming the American movie industry is undergoing a very fast death as global incentives lure filmmakers away from domestic production. This is a concerted effort by other nations and therefore a national security threat. So, foreign movies are now a national security threat, ladies and gentlemen. It is, in addition to everything else, messaging and propaganda, said King Propaganda himself on Truth Social. He added that relevant agencies, including the Department of Commerce, have been authorized to begin implementing the new policy. We want movies made in America again, Trump declared. What's up, Desert Mantis? Yeah, I know, man. He's had all that plastic surgery. He's starting to go the way of, what's his face? Oh God, who's the guy? He was in Iron Man 2 as Whiplash, and he was in The Wrestler. You guys know what I'm talking about. He had like a shit. He looks like the cat lady now. I can't think of his name, but you know who I'm talking about. And Sly, at least Sylvester Stallone learned when to quit. He said, he thought that was the new Colonel Sanders. 12 herbs and spices. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick confirmed the directive on tweeters, saying, "We're on it." However, neither he nor Trump clarified how the tariff would be enforced. It remains uncertain whether the measure would apply to content on streaming platforms, theatrical releases, or if the tariff would be based on production budgets or revenues, which is all kind of moot if you have your special movie sites and torrents and you download the shit yourself. Tariffs? Pfft, buying, dude, what the fuck? The move comes as the U.S. faces growing competition from countries offering lucrative tax incentives and rebates to attract international productions. Trump framed these offers as part of a coordinated attempt to undermine U.S. creative industries and national messaging. In January, he appointed Hollywood veterans Jon Voight, Sylvester Stallone, and Mel Gibson to lead a campaign to revive domestic film production. Yeah, good luck with that. Ain't nobody knows who those fuckers are anymore. At least the young people. The American movie industry has steadily shifted overseas, with major companies like Walt Disney, Netflix, and Universal filming exclusively in Canada, Britain, and other countries. According to ProdPro, nearly half of U.S.-based productions with budgets over $40 million in 2023 were shot abroad or domestically in Louisiana and Georgia. Meanwhile, TV production in Los Angeles has dropped nearly 40% over the past decade, according to Film LA. This year's Los Angeles wildfires have further heightened fears that behind-the-scenes talent, from costume designers to sound engineers, may leave the region altogether. A survey by ProdPro found California ranks only 6th among the most preferred filming locations, falling behind Toronto, Britain, Vancouver, Central Europe, and Australia. Yeah, that's why you see a lot of these sci-fi shows out of Toronto. The Motion Picture Association, which represents leading studios, has yet to issue a formal response. Insiders in Hollywood expressed concern on Sunday night over the ambiguity of the policy and whether it could inadvertently target U.S.-owned content films abroad. I was watching The Critical Drinker. I subscribe to his channel, and he was talking about this too. I think he said... like in Canada, you get, or in California, you get like a 20% tax benefit, but then you go to places like Georgia or Louisiana, it's like 30%, something like that. The percentages are higher, so they get more of a tax break. Officials in Australia and New Zealand swiftly reacted, pledging to defend their local film sectors. Australia has hosted major Marvel productions, while New Zealand is widely known for its role in producing the Lord of the Rings franchise. Yeah. What are you gonna do if you don't shoot outside the United States? You can shoot Lord of the Rings in Cleveland? Really? Maybe Cincinnati? You get WKRP involved? Critics warn the measure could provoke damaging trade retaliation. William Reich, a former senior Department of Commerce official, said the move could backfire dramatically, among other things that Trump's done. The retaliation will kill our industry. We have a lot more to lose than to gain, he said, questioning the national security justification for penalizing giggity foreign-made movies. The announcement marks the latest in a series of tariff measures launched by the Trump administration, many of which have rattled global markets and reignited fears of economic fallout. And to be fair, a lot of these foreign films are a lot better than domestic American films, right? Because it's all about the cost cutting. They want to cut costs. And when they cut costs, what do? They cut quality. That's exactly what happens. What we got here? Oh, yeah. And finally, more dumb Trump shit. And more dumb U.S. lawmakers as they back Trump's Gulf of America name change, which nobody in America is going to call it the Gulf of America. Surely around the world, they're not going to call it the Gulf of America. So why do all this? again, what's the end game here? Is this just hubris? Is this just, letting Trump be a dick? I don't know. U.S. lawmakers voted yesterday to rename the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America, turning into federal law, an executive order signed by Trumpy in his first week in office. The bill's passage in the Republican-led House of Representatives is largely symbolic, of course, as other countries are under no obligation to use Trump's new designation, and the measure is unlikely to pass the Senate where it requires Democratic votes. Can you imagine, like some country didn't call it the Gulf of America, and then Trump levies a sanction on them just because of that? That could probably happen. Upon taking office, Trump signed executive orders changing the name of the body of the water and also reverting the name of Denali, America's highest peak, to its former moniker, Mount McKinley. Trump's renaming sparked criticism from indigenous groups in Alaska and raised diplomatic concerns with Mexico, where President Claudia Sheinbaum suggested calling the United States Mexican America. As long as we get the food, I don't care what we call this place. The House bill directs federal agencies to update their documents and maps to reflect the name change. Codifying the rightful renaming of the Gulf of America isn't just a priority for me and President Trump. It's a priority for the American people, said far-right Georgia Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, who authored the bill. It's a priority for the American... I don't think they give a fuck. I don't think the American people give a fuck about the name of the Gulf. I really don't. This is not a priority. And if it's a priority to some people, then their priorities are pretty fucked up. Republican moderate Don Bacon told CNN, however, the move seems juvenile and just doesn't have that sizzle to it. See, a little bacon joke there. Yay! His cousin Kevin couldn't be found for comment. But we found 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. So we talked to them. We're the United States of America. We're not Kaiser Wilhelm's Germany or Napoleon's France. We're better than this. It just sounds like a sophomore thing to do. It is. It's a waste of time and money. The name change would cost the federal government less than $500,000 over 5 years to update documents and maps, according to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. But schools, libraries, and other public organizations would bear the cost of updating their materials, and Democrats have called the effort a waste of money. This bill does nothing to materially improve the lives of U.S. citizens. It's an unserious offering by the majority, said a statement from the office of House Democratic Whip Catherine Clark. If she was orange, people would be asking, orange whip, orange whip, orange whip, orange whip. Trump barred the AP from the Oval Office and from traveling on Air Force One in February because of the global news agency's decision to continue referring to the Gulf of Mexico. In its style guide, the AP notes that the Gulf of Mexico has carried that name for more than 400 years, and the agency will refer to it by its original name while acknowledging the new name Trump has chosen. So basically saying, all right, we'll call it that in front of Trump, but we're not calling that that. A federal judge said in April the viewpoint-based denial of the AP's access was a violation of the First Amendment to the Constitution, which guarantees freedom of speech and of the press. The Trump administration is appealing the judge's ruling, ordering the White House to restore the AP's access to official presidential events. So, Trumpy, you say we get... And Tulsi, come on. What the fuck happened to this bitch? Jesus, so she went from like Crusader to like, hey, Gulf of Mexico, Gulf of America, y'all. What the fuck? Come on, people, Jesus Christ! You're wondering why we can't have nice things? It's because of idiots running the show. Is basically what's going on. Don Bacon is a Zionist chud puppet. AP style will be to explain if every single time it's mentioned. Yeah. AP style. Yeah. So I don't know what Trump told you that he was going to try and limit the government. Hey, he's going to try and limit the government from actually doing shit to help you. Yes. That's his way of limiting the government. But this other shit, So that's your propaganda block brought to you by bullshit, where fuckery is always afoot. And finally today, this is how dumb people are, right? You got stuck on a mountain, right? And you didn't know if you were going to survive or not. And you were rescued. You would probably be like, thanking whoever for life and, you know, being like, wow, you know, just being so grateful. I'm never going to fuck up like that again. Well, there's one person that man rescued from Mount Fuji twice in 1 week. You're like, why twice in 1 week? That's just odd. It is odd. A man in his 20s was airlifted from Japan's Mount Fuji, then rescued again from its steep slopes just days later because he returned to find his phone, according to media reports. Police told AFP the Chinese university student who lives in Japan was found Saturday by another off-season hiker on a trail more than 3,000 meters. That's about 10,000 feet above sea level. He was suspected of having altitude sickness. I almost said attitude sickness. And was taken to hospital, a spokesperson in Shizuoka region said on Monday. I love how outside the United States, it's like they go to university or they taken to hospital, not taken to a hospital or a university. But there's multiple hospitals. Later, officers discovered that the man was the same one who had been rescued on Mount Fuji 4 days previously. Private broadcaster TBS, not to be confused with Ted Turner and his gang in Atlanta, and other media outlets reported. Police could not immediately confirm the reports, which said the man, having been rescued by helicopter on Tuesday, returned on Friday to retrieve his mobile phone, which he forgot to bring with him during the first rescue. It was not known whether he was able to find his phone in the end, said the report, citing unnamed sources. Mount Fuji, an active volcano and Japan's highest peak, is covered in snow for most of the year. Its hiking trails are open from early July to early September, a period when crowds trudge up the steep rocky slopes through the night to see the sunrise. People are dissuaded from hiking outside of the summer season because conditions can be treacherous. The symmetrical 3,776-meter mountain has been immortalized in countless artworks, including Hokusai's Great Wave. It last erupted around 300 years ago, but with all these fuckers losing their phones and shit on there, chances are it'll probably explode again out of just sheer impatience with humanity. So trapped on a mountain. I think, you know what? If you can afford to hike up in the mountain, you can afford a new phone. I mean, you know, not saying, just saying, you know, but it would be fucked up if he didn't get his phone again and he went up there for nothing. But that's people. That's where we're at, folks. I watched Kevin's show yesterday, Black Bear News. I think he said he's going to be on the regular channels today. I think YouTube, Rockfin, and Rumble. Be sure to check out Black Bear News with our buddy Kevin. And please, I think it'll be around 2 p.m. Central Time, 3 p.m. Eastern. I think he'll come on. Or he has been coming on later, so I don't know. He'll be on sometime today. Check out his channel. And also check out his GoFundMe. As you may not know or may know that he lost his home in the L.A. fires and he could use all the help we can give him. He's a good man. And he provides a lot of information for us, so if we can help him out. And if you can't donate, if you could share out the link, that would be good too. And then these crazy motherfuckers tomorrow night. It's the secret show with yours truly, talking about dumb shit, playing dumb videos, but sometimes we educate you, whether you want it or not. So there is that. So that's tomorrow night, midnight Eastern, 9 p.m. Pacific time. On YouTube, Rockfin, Rumble, and on the Book of Faces. So I think Facebook should be like the Necronomicon. I think it should be made out of human skin. Thanks, Bella. Today's Black Bear News stream, air traffic jam, Trump stiff arms Netanyahu, and NSO judgment. And if you're already in the YouTube chat there, you can click on the link there. But just look for if the easy thing, just look for Black Bear News on YouTube or Rockfin or Rumble, and check him out. He had on who do you have on yesterday? What's his face? He's always on Facebook. I'm not Facebook. He's always on Rumble. It was a good show. I enjoyed it very much. What's his name? Damn it. I know his name. I know his name. I forgot his name. I'm sorry. Anyway, but it was a good show yesterday. And he is Denver. Yeah. Denver Attaway. Thank you, Bella. I almost said Cleveland because I knew it was a city name, but I forgot. So Cleveland Attaway. I don't think he'd want to be called that. But yeah, he had Denver is a long time viewer of the show. He watches this show sometimes too, and he had some good input with him yesterday. So I really enjoyed that. So check out all that tomorrow for the secret show tomorrow night at midnight. This show possibly will be back on Tuesday. I'm thinking about making a super show, just doing a Wednesday, or just doing a Friday show, maybe doing it like 8 hours long. It's just nothing but news of the week. But I'll try to be back on Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central, 9 a.m. Mountain Time, and 8 a.m. Pacific Time right here on YouTube, Rockfin Rumble, and Facebook. I appreciate all the support. If you want to do more for us, if you want to actually contribute money to the show, we have ways of doing that. There's all our stuff down there. I mean, the links are down below in the description box too. And again, if you can't afford it, I understand. If you want to help me out and share out the links, I appreciate it. Every little bit helps. I appreciate all the support in this community. I think we have a really good community here. You know, everybody in the chat's very knowledgeable, and it's good to know, right? We just need to help educate those who are either just propagandized to the hilt or just are the ignorance is bliss types and they don't want to know. You could say, well, you don't want to know, but you got to know. Otherwise, you're going to start doing some shit. And, you know, you're not going to be able to do it. So thank you, everyone. I love each and every one of you. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow night. I think Jerry's doing his show tonight. His IO journey, talking about his transplant that, well, it's more of a, it's wild. He had a surgery to have like basically the steel rod put into his bone. So where he can actually connect the leg piece, where you can attach it better. Cause right now it's just sitting, it's attached with like straps or something like that. It's very uncomfortable. So, so anyway, I'm just rambling. Y'all have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow night for the secret show. Come see all the buddies. Come see all these folks here too. Check out all our promo buddies. Make sure you're liking and sharing and subscribing to their channels too. They're doing good work in this space, and we appreciate all of them as well. Brothers and sisters in our effort to entertain and inform the public. Y'all have a, it was a prosthetic upgrade. Thanks, Chuck. Love to chat and love to everybody. Y'all have a great day. See you in probably some of the other shows later. Take care. I'll smell you later. And tell your mom I said hi because, well, you don't have to tell. I'll see her tonight.
This is City Alpha 5! Woo!
Soon.